Welcome to the 2020 WhistleStop Winter Haven Virtual Hobnob. Welcome. My name is Katie Worthington Decker, and I am the President and CEO of the Greater Winter Haven Chamber of Commerce, and it is my privilege to be your MC for this video series. WhistleStop Winter Haven is traditionally an in-person event where members of the public can come together to shake hands and get to know the candidates that are on the ballot through one-on-one conversations. But as we all know, 2020 is a year to adapt, so we have pivoted this event to an online series of Zoom interviews. We certainly hope you take the time to listen to each of the candidates and learn a little bit more about them and what they stand for and while they're running. We have invited every candidate on the ballot in Polk County to participate, and we want to thank those candidates who did decide to do it. Full disclosure, the Winter Haven Chamber does not endorse any individual candidates, but we do believe in an informed electorate. So we hope that you find these videos useful as you are getting ready to fill out your ballot. I'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsors for this video series. Our presenting sponsor is Citizens Bank and Trust. Our Meet the Candidates sponsor is Spectrum. Our additional sponsors include Citrus Connection, the Hemingway Group Realtors with Crosby & Associates, John Wood Realty, and the campaign of Sam Killebrew, District 41. As I mentioned, there are two important dates for you to remember coming up in this election. On August 18th is the primary. And while there are the traditional Democrat and Republican primary races, there are also some very important local races that will be decided during that election. These include school board, county commission, supervisor of election, and the Lake Region Lakes Management District. And of course, the second date to remember is the general election that will be held nationally on November 3rd. We hope that you will find this video series useful, and please encourage your family and friends that are eligible to vote to do so. It is our greatest right as American citizens. Enjoy. Right, Billy, thank you so much for participating in our 2020 virtual WhistleStop political hobnob. By purchasing your virtual booth, you have provided our chamber the opportunity to educate the citizens of Polk County about the upcoming elections and the issues that are on the ballot. So since your campaign has purchased this virtual booth, the Florida Division of Elections does require you to disclose that fact in the following statement.
So this is the point at which I read. This is a political advertisement paid for and approved by Billy Townsend for School Board District 1. Is that fully? Did that fully disclaim? All right. And I approve whatever this message is going to be. So there you go.
Yeah, I think we've all memorized that, and this is, I approve this message part of it. But again, thank you so much for participating in this. I'm really excited about this opportunity for people to be able, at their leisure, to learn a little bit more about each of the candidates on the ballot. And so we'll dive into the first question if you're ready.
We're ready.
All right. So what are you most proud of accomplishing during your first term as a school board member?
I think above all else, building intense engagement between the public and the board that really has never existed before. I think what we've created, even in the opposition, is unprecedented. People are focused on the elected school board, on the business of the school district in a way they certainly weren't for most of the time that I've lived here, and I've lived here going on 25 years now. I think the transparency we brought, I think the explaining of how education works, we've just brought the public much closer to how the school district operates, and that's been uncomfortable for some people because that's not how things are traditionally done, and I get that. But I think the benefits of it have been extraordinary, and I think you see just the intensity of care. And I think the other thing I'm really proud of is turning the focus to the human capacity needs of the system as a whole. We have tended to think of education in Florida as the collection of data above all else. We have stopped thinking about children as human beings. We've stopped thinking about our teachers as human beings. They are repositories of data as far as the school is concerned. I mean, the state is concerned. And I've been pretty insistent on their humanity, on building the human capacity, on focusing on the human development of kids. And I think those two priorities, really making the case for that and seeing the public respond, is what I'm the most proud of.
Mhm. And what do you think are our school district's greatest strengths?
Our greatest strengths, I think right now is the community bond. I think the community interest. I think the engagement of our teaching staff. I will give you an example. We've got a number of teachers involved in the reopening task force right now. Their advocacy, their nuts and bolts work is shaping this thing I call the Tether option that was not originally on the table. It's going to allow, we hope, kids to have online options connected to their home schools, as opposed to having to choose a homeschool or Florida virtual or Polk virtual. I think the getting that kind of I'm sorry. Will you say the question again?
No, you're
It was, it
actually
was,
you're touching on it. It's what are our district's greatest strengths?
strengths. Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. I think the engagement of the people in it, particularly the people on the ground, and I think the collaboration that we're seeing between labor and management right now is pretty unprecedented as well. And I think that's because the elected board, or at least a substantial portion of the elected board, has prioritized that. When I came into office, that collaboration really did not exist. I think you're seeing management and labor, not just teachers, people who do the work, collaborate in ways they have not before, talk to one another in ways they have not before. Sometimes that's through disagreements. Sometimes that's through hashing things out. But the product we're getting through those really constructive debates is good, and I'm very proud of that. Other strengths, our arts programs are again the things that drive humanity. Our arts, our sports, our ag, the things that are really meaningful to kids that are experience based. We do that very well. Particularly in arts, we prioritize that in a way that other districts do not, and that's actually been the case for the board for a long time, and I do give previous boards credit for that, and the current administration has prioritized that as well. I could go on and on about the strengths. They are the human beings who deliver the love and the product under a lot of times great duress from people of power who don't really care very much about them. And I think that's one other thing that I think is particularly relevant to Winter Haven. We've begun to think more and more in terms of the district as a knitted together coalition of communities, and I think you see in a Winter Haven where you guys have a specific community liaison that recognizes that the Haven community is a distinct thing. That was actually something I campaigned on in 2016. I wanted to go a little further and kind of reorganize administratively how things were overseen, but I think this has been a good start, and I was fully supportive of that and happy to see that work. So I think community, human experience, and human beings that work in the district are our strengths.
Okay. Along those same lines, what do you believe are the district's greatest challenges?
Capacity. There, and this is not just our district. This is, I think, every district in Florida, particularly, but across the country as well. The public demands a certain level of care and attention to each individual child that the government simply does not provide the capacity to meet. In that gap lies some unpleasant experiences. It's where lies our teacher shortage. It is the mismatch between the human capacity of education systems, the Polk education system, And what the public demands and deserves is a real challenge, and I've talked about that a lot. Teacher pay, of course, staff pay is part of that. And one thing that I'm proud of that I neglected to mention, when I came into office, um, we were essentially at impasse with our staff, the entire board and the senior leadership was, and I convinced the board over time and leadership to reduce our reserves from 5% to 4%, which is something the state had actually talked about districts doing. And that committed an additional $32 million to the human capacity of the Polk County school system over the last 4 years that would not have been there otherwise. And we were able to fix our healthcare plan, which was broken before I was elected through inattention. And we were able to provide modest raises. I don't want to oversell that, but we were able to avoid any kind of layoffs at a time when the state was being very stingy. We were able to use what we had to increase the human capacity. So capacity is really the thing I talk to, particularly with business groups. I think very often business groups think of education, they sort of talk about it as infrastructure in the same way they talk about roads or sewer or whatever, but they don't really mean it. They when they look at teachers, they think of them as I think missionaries or sources of cost. It's almost a charity mindset, and I've tried to bring to the business community's attention the organizational flaws in how your key employees are paid, are incentivized to stay and develop. And I think all those things relate to capacity. And so when I talk to a business group, I talk a lot about how do we build the capacity? How do we focus on human development so we create healthy, happy citizens who then become good employees? I think we've focused a little bit too much on creating narrowly skilled employees rather than good citizens, because good citizens are always good employees. Narrowly skilled employees are not always good citizens or lasting employees.
So what do you believe should be the school district's top 3 priorities kind of moving forward?
Again, I think capacity, but internally, I think a continued move toward a culture of development and collaboration, not sort of authoritarianism. Again, education in Florida is a peculiar animal. It's very top down. School boards are actively encouraged to not take a very active role. They're encouraged to defer to both to the state and to the executives, superintendent who run things. So that creates a distance between the community and how the community's kids are educated. I think I've closed that distance quite a bit as a board member, and there's been some resistance to it. I would like to see us continue to work on that so that we welcome the idea as an organization that the public has real say in how their kids are educated. And then 2, that the people who are doing the work on the ground have meaningful role in the direction and the culture and the decisions that are made. Obviously you have to have leadership that makes decisions and stands by them and enforces them. But we're always better when those decisions are made in a kind of freewheeling, everybody gets a say, everything gets synthesized together, and then we move forward. And I think this whole tether option question with reopening is a good example of that. The district put out what I thought was a pretty ill-advised announcement a couple of weeks ago, a week and a half ago, about there being sort of a binary choice between show up at your home school or do Polk virtual. And they didn't really consult with the elected board. That they didn't really talk about why that was. And there was a lot of pushback from myself and from others in the community and from people in the organization as well. And that pushback was really good because it helped frame a much better update. I don't know if you saw the update that came out yes, yesterday, but it was excellent. It was detailed. It talked about what our thinking is. It put the whole tether option back on. It gave links to the meetings so people can see what's being discussed. I think that's the way you really build confidence and bond with the community, whether it's the wider community or the business community or anyone. And that really happens best if decision making is informed by broad-based input. And I've been sort of a unrelenting advocate for that, and I won't stop that. And I think the results are actually really good when we do that.
Yeah, I haven't seen the update from yesterday, but it sounds like it allows for an option for them still to be connected to their school.
Right. Yeah. The sort of brand name I gave that was the Tether option. Yeah. So that if you don't feel comfortable in your school, you have the ability to stay connected to your school virtually. Now, there are a lot of details with that have to be worked out. Right. But I was very pleased with how we're like showing our work. A lot of times we don't show our work. A decision just happens, and people are like, well, why did you do that? And we can't really tell them because there wasn't a record of discussing it. And in this case, I think staff leadership and our folks really got the message to show their work a little bit more, and I appreciate them heeding it. And what happened, I think, ended up being really good.
And just if somebody is watching this and wants to learn more about that, it is polkschoolsfl.com and then /reopening to get to that direct page, and you can watch the meetings and learn more about the program.
Right, and there are going to be regular updates there. And I think it's important for everybody to know no plan that we come up with is going to survive first contact with reality. This is going to be a strange year, same way last year was. There's going to have to be iterations to it and trial and error. And if we open schools on a trial basis, I guarantee you some of them are going to close again because there'll be an adult that gets it or whatever. It's going to be like that. And I think the more we can show our work and the more we can show how we're thinking and trying to serve the public, the better it's going to be, and the more patient they're going to be with us. Like it's important to explain why we're thinking what we're thinking, and I was really pleased with what came out.
Very good. Well, it's like we're telling our businesses, over communicate to the public what you were doing to make them feel safe and explain your reasoning, and you'll have a lot more reasonable public. So one of the big things on the shoulders, if you will, of the incoming school board this fall will be hiring a new superintendent.
Yes.
What would you personally be looking for attributes for a new person coming into that role?
My number one question, number one question, I've thought about this a lot. What do I want the most in a superintendent? It's someone that I trust with power, as an elected board member, and someone who represents the public and the employees as well. Superintendents have an enormous amount of power, probably more powerful in their way than almost anybody else in the county, except maybe the sheriff, right? In terms of just the position being powerful. And like that is what your relationship is to power is going to be really important. I'm going to ask people about that. Secondly, what's your thought on the role of the board? Are you comfortable with a board that is assertive in its role, that will give public direction, that will talk about things, but most of all just wants to be collaborated with, wants to be included in the key decisions so that we can help explain them to the public, because we are the key link between the senior staff and the public for what happens, and I think that's going to be something that has to be addressed as well. Third, and this is kind of a tricky one because it relates to the right candidate, right? Ideally, in my ideal world, we would have an internal candidate if we get the right set of attributes. I think this county has become a very complex place. Mm-hmm. I think the district has become a very complex place. You have a lot of strong personalities. You have a lot of undercurrents that I think are really healthy. I mean, some people see them as conflict. I see them as extraordinarily constructive, healthy debate about the nature of education. Um, I think someone who is comfortable in those currents and understands Mulberry and understands Davenport and understands Lake Wales and understands North Lakeland versus South Lakeland, understands Winter Haven's sense of its own identity. Like, that is a big learning curve if you don't get it, if you don't know it. And so, in the abstract, my preference is for someone who understands that, but they also have to, be the right candidate. So we'll see who applies.
Mm-hmm.
And I think fourth, I think the last time we did a national search, I was not involved. I was barely paying attention. Shame on me. But we hired a mercenary who brought, we meaning the school board, and that mercenary did a lot of damage here that we're still cleaning up. I give Ms. Bird quite a bit of credit for changing the public perception of the superintendent position, of being a constant public presence.
Are you referring to the superintendent before?
I am. I'm sorry, Kat.
Okay.
Yes, yeah, Kat. I am referring to Kat, to Adrian Leroy. I want to. Yeah. She was a mercenary, and our people suffered for it. The system suffered for it, and we've been trying to clean that up for a while. And again, I agree with the with Superintendent Bird's role in repairing a lot of that public perception damage. And I think I've helped with that too. I was the person who led the movement to replace Ms. Leroy when I was a private citizen, and I think the things that she did badly, I focused on doing well, as a school board member. And I think that that we've come a long way from where we were. And I think it shows the value of, there's been some tension between senior staff leadership in the board that some people see as a problem. I just see it as like creative tension. A lot of times when you're hashing out these important things at a high level, there are going to be disagreements, and then those disagreements get resolved, again, like the Tether Option thing, by hashing them out. And I think this process of post Leroy creative tension has been really helpful for the district as a whole. And I'm proud of how that's worked.
So for those people that may not know you or your background, just spend a couple minutes telling people about you, Billy Townsend, as a person.
I'm pretty boring.
Oh, I doubt that, Billy.
No, really. I started my professional career as a reporter. Well, let me just back up. My family is heavy in education and law. I have both of those things kind of instilled in me. I became a reporter at a young age. I was a newspaper reporter for the first half of my professional life. A lot of that was with the Ledger, and then also with the Tampa Trib. While I was the second part of my tenure at the Ledger, I was the editor who oversaw education coverage. Like when Lake Wales Charter went charter, I was reading all those stories and editing them. I very long ago concluded that the way Florida does education with its school grades and the test is fraud. I mean, I'm very upfront about that. The entire model of evaluation in Florida is fraud. It's harmful to kids. It's harmful to parents. It's harmful to everybody. It needs to end tomorrow. I make no bones about that. And that's kind of driven my attention to education for a long time. And then I left journalism because the industry fell apart, and I work for a very large professional services firm. I lead a national proposal writing team. I am actually in the middle of global business to some degree, which is funny because business groups tend not to appreciate that. I've seen, and this, the firm that I work for is really well run and has a great internal organization, and I see a lot of parallels to what we do and what the district should do, and so I try to think about strong workplace norms and how to treat people respectfully. And then when I left journalism, I started a blog with a friend of mine called Lakeland Local. Wrote a whole bunch of stuff, not just about education. I'm kind of an historian, and I'm interested in that, and I've written a couple of books. And other than that, I'm just a dad who tries to not yell at my kid too much when he's not doing what I wanted to do on the baseball field. you know,
Oh, you're not one of those parents, are you?
no, I'm not. I know I'm not. No, I've actually coached I've coached a ton of youth sports teams. I've actually learned a lot about kids from that, and how to be, the importance of explaining why to them, and the importance of rooting for them. I think it's really important that we root for our kids. That sounds like a easy thing, but it's not. Like, it's sometimes we forget to root for them because we think of them as data. We don't think of them as Susie Jones. We think of them as a level 3 reader, and that's an atrocity to reduce a child to a label that based on a number is an atrocity. And I will never stop fighting that. So anyway, that's me, I guess.
So final question, because we're out of time,
Yeah,
but so as succinct as you can, but why should voters choose you over your opponent in this race?
I'm the best, most active school board member in the last 25 years here. Made more difference on the school board than any other school board member ever has. Part of some of the resentment toward me from a few people is a direct result of that fact. Things are better because I'm there. The public knows more. The public sees our meetings. The public is informed. The public is engaged. That's because of me. And I'm proud of that. I make no apologies for it. I'm good at what I do, and what I do is serve the public, not the whims of powerful people.
And if people want to learn more about you and your campaign, do you have a website set up that you can share?
I do. BillyTownsend.com. There are millions of words there. You will you can bore yourself into tears, but you will be informed. I mean, I think a lot. I write a lot, and I obsessively. So please go look at it. BillyTownsend.com.
Very good. Well, Billy, thank you so much for being our very first interview as a part of this WhistleStop Hobnob. And our viewers can learn more by watching both your interview and the interview of all the candidates on the ballot for all the races, for those candidates that were willing to participate in this. So, Billy, thank you again for being our very first interview.
Oh, and thank you for doing this in this way. I think this is a great service to the public. I'm really proud to take part in it, and I think you guys do a great job advocating for the business good and the public good. So thanks.
Thank you very much.